Yo, what is up, everybody? Fresco back again. Another story from the collection titled The Shadow Dies Loudly, written by T.L. Burhu. Remember to use the links in the description below. Show love to the author. Like, comment, subscribe. While you laugh in the face of God. Belle awoke from a nightmare. One where her innocence and humanity was lost all at once by thick black tentacles in a gray cloud, suffocating and invading her. Finally, the coils enter her spinal cord, and that is when she woke up. While she sat in bed, breathing heavily, she noticed a wetness on her nightgown. She didn't know if she was that scared during the night, or perhaps she was really invaded by the inhumane things. The church bells rang. It was time for Mass. Belle woke her older sister Jillian by throwing a balled-up sock at her head. Jill made a noise that sounded almost a bit like "fuck church," but Belle knew that Jill would never slander the Lord like that. Belle got dressed, and in a hurry, while Jill was already dressed, she took off her covers. "Why are you wearing the clothes in bed?" I came home late." "Jillian, are you with that Jack boy again?" Maybe if you were a real woman, you know what it's like to be with a man." Belle studied Jill like she did every day. Childbearing hips and large breasts, the treasure that all men in the village wanted. Whereas Belle was a short and childlike, despite being almost 20. She didn't hate her sister, but there was a strong envy toward her. Belle knew that the church said not to be envious, and she wondered how they knew what it was like to be the woman who was never looked at. To be the woman that no man wanted. Deep down, Belle was angry that the great shepherd did not bless her with good looks. If she did have kids, they would be weak like her. Her sons would never be hunters or builders. Her daughters would not be attractive enough to get a man with natural success. And when she was old and gray, she would die alone, unable to be helped by her children. The village might even send her to the woods to die. It was either death or be damned eternally if the witches got to her. If I am truly blessed, Belle thought, then I will die in my sleep while my God laughs at me. The two sisters went to the temple in the center of town. Jill went to sit next to Jack, the strong son of a woodsman who had been very kind to Jill ever since she developed. Belle, looking for a place to sit, sat next to a blind old man, didn't seem to notice her. The sermon began. "It is the 14th day of the harvest season, and our Lord has blessed us with wondrous crops this year. The great shepherd has blessed us with food, clean water and air, and beautiful childbearing women. We will return the favor, but first, today's lesson." The crowd grew silent. Everyone in the room was ecstatic to hear what knowledge the high priest had for them. "In the Dark Age, men and women held power beyond even our Lord's understanding. They were demonic, evil creatures. The false Adam and Eves were given seats at the grand feast, and even man and demon joined in unholy matrimony. The false ones and their enlightened slaves rule the outskirts of our peaceful and God-fearing village. I look around the room and can recognize all of you. We have been a strong community, blessed and pure. We will be the ones in the kingdom of heaven because we were blessed with death, forgetfulness, and the brain fog. Does anyone here know why we live in this sanctuary? It is because our ancestors knew what was right. No one here knows why they were right, but we accept it as truth, because that is the way of the great shepherd. Men are not supposed to know everything. From the first men to the last, we will be humble or death. The crowd erupted with applause. The blind old man wasn't clapping, and he leaned into Belle's ears and whispered, "One day, we'll both laugh, face of God." Then he got up and walked out the temple. Later on, Belle wondered what the old man meant. Did he know she was angry at the Creator? Was he a witch? Or worse, was he a false one, infiltrating the village? No, that's silly. The false ones probably don't even exist. So she continued to sew a hole in her dress and not think about such nonsense. Jill had been missing for several hours now. Belle was told by her uncle when Jill didn't come back from the well. She's probably off with Jack. What do you mean she's off with Jack? Belle froze up. She didn't mean to give away her sister's secret like that. She stammered and stuttered and tried to fabricate a lie to cover up what she meant. But her uncle wasn't listening. He was already taking the pitchfork off the shelf, ready to hunt down this Jack and protect his niece's soul. What started out as a manhunt by one angry uncle turned out into a community-lead search for bodies in a matter of hours. Nobody could find a trace of Jack or Jill. The high priest led a sermon an hour after the search ended. Belle wasn't paying attention. Her mind was occupied by the fact that her sister might be dead. There were talks of false ones in the forest, or witches looking for a sacrifice. The blind old man was in the corner of the room. Even though his eyes were milky white and dead, Belle could feel his gaze upon her. As Belle slept that night, she dreamed of the black tentacles and gray cloud surrounding Jill, violating her. Eventually, the tentacles slithered away, the cloud disappeared. What was left was a gray being that somewhat resembled Jill, but hairless and covered in strange markings. The gray being opened its mouth and a blue light shone. Belle was drawn to it, called out messages of peace and unity, of knowledge from beyond the stars and deep within the human mind. Temptation was too much, and Belle embraced the gray being. Then he woke up. Belle made the decision to skip church, sneak off to the woods. She crept by her uncle, who was making his way toward her cabin, and entered his tool shed. She grabbed a hammer and broke into a sprint to the woods. She didn't know where she was going, but she thought the great shepherd would guide her. Belle was barely 100 pounds. She knew she couldn't do much damage with the hammer, but it was the first thing she grabbed, and she couldn't head back now. Everyone in the village would be in the temple. Nobody would know that she was gone till hours passed. Besides, she could always blame witches that controlled her mind, or a false one chased her into the woods. The elders of the village believed such nonsense. Belle was too smart to fall for superstition. Though, the deeper in the woods she traveled, the more frightened she got. There can't be any witches or false ones, but what about bandits or murderers? Or worse, lurking woods? She knew many people were exiled over the years into the forest. What if they were still here? The twig snapped, and Belle dropped her hammer. A cackle ripped through the woods, and Belle took off running. Her sense of direction was lost. All that mattered was to move away from whatever laughed at her. She saw a clearing in the trees, a small patch of grass where she could hide. Suddenly, the grass burst into flames. She turned around to see an old woman draped in rags standing in the distance. Belle turned. Another exact replica stood in her path. Every direction held an identical old woman rapidly approaching her. Belle screamed, and as hands covered her face, and her world turned to blackness. Belle awoke to the smell of boiling roots. She opened her eyes and watched the old woman dice mushrooms with a large knife and gently dropped them into a boiling pot.
Ah, you're up, little one.
Belle was petrified. The old woman walked slowly toward her, flashing a smile of yellow and jagged teeth. What are you gonna do to me? What did you do to my sister?
I know where your sister is. The air tells me she's in the false world, as you people call it. She is enlightened now.
The church says enlightenment is a terrible thing.
The church? The church knows nothing, and they are proud of it. I see all.
How do you see all?
Our ancestors left us gifts everywhere. You just need to know how to tap into them. Each on smaller than a speck of dust, but as powerful as a rifle. More so, I communicate with these gifts. I was too poor to become a false one. I could never have that luxury, but I studied the world around me and became one with the universe. I don't understand anything you're talking about. You will learn, little Belle. One day you will laugh in the face of God.
How? You know my name.
I told you, dearie. I know everything. Get to the mountain. All your questions will be answered there. But first, you are weak. Drink this, and you will be strong.
The old woman handed her a bowl of steaming blue liquid. Belle sniffed it. It had no smell. He drank it with hesitation, knowing it was the only way out of this old woman's hovel.
All finished?
Belle couldn't answer, for everything went dark and she could no longer see the old woman. Belle stood up in the darkness, and the floor formed where she walked. She was afraid she would misstep and plunge into infinite darkness. A door appeared, She opened it and entered a field of blue grass, glass trees. She wandered the landscape when off in the distance she saw two children, both wearing masks, off in the distance. She ran over them. She ran over to them. She kept running, never getting closer. The children kept their distance, no matter how fast or far she ran. Eventually, she stopped gasping for breath. The children approached her. It only took them a few steps. She looked at them. She couldn't tell their gender. One was wearing a mask that looked sad. The other wore one that looked happy. Who are you two? We are strife and paradise. One does not exist without the other. What are you? We are the new gods, built eons ago and put in charge of you mortals. Your old gods died, never existed or abandoned you. We cannot come to a solid conclusion. Where's my sister? Safe, for now. How do I get to her? You don't. I don't understand. Where am I? You are in the place of the enlightened. Your kind calls us the false ones. Your kind builds, then tries to destroy. You are a paradox of nature. How do I leave? Not many of your kind want to leave, but we suppose it makes sense. After all, you are but a child, new to this universe and your own. You know nothing. At the moment, you are nothing, till you can prove yourself. How do I prove myself? Embrace us. Then you will know. Belle walked up to them cautiously, and suddenly, strife and paradise expanded outward. Black tentacles and gray clouds emitting from their bodies. Belle was terrified. She couldn't move as the cloud entered her nose and throat, and the tentacles burrowed into her flesh. She did not feel pain or discomfort, just fear. Fear of the unknown. She could faintly hear the words, "She's waking up, plug her back in." It sounded too clear to be a coincidence. Suddenly, she was back in the dark world. Nothingness. She tried to look at her own hands, couldn't find them. There, just nothing. Hello? Then, big white letters appeared in front of her that spelled out, "Hello." Is anyone out there? What is happening? Great Shepherd, please help me. Suddenly, a field appeared out of nowhere. This one different from the previous ones. It was bright green grass, dark gray clouds covered the sky, and a young man wearing a cloak and carrying a cane stood next to Belle. You called me? Are you? Yes, I am the Great Shepherd. You know you have done some naughty things, Belle. I know I shouldn't have been jealous of Jill. I shouldn't have skipped church and wandered off. I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. Please just give me my sister back and bring me home. I want to bring you home, but I don't think I can. Not up to me. You're a god. We worship you. How can you not do anything to help me? I am a construct in your mind, Belle. I exist only because you exist. I don't understand any of you. What is going on? All will be forgiven one day. Soon you will laugh, face of God. Just then, everything disappeared again, and Belle awoke in her bed. She got up and walked over to her sister's bed. It was empty. She knew what needed to be done, but she had to make sure. Belle journeyed to the well where Jack and Jill were last sent. She peered inside. There were their bodies. Their skulls caved in from several hammer blows. Belle went down to the temple and told the community he did. There was a trial. Some claimed that Belle was driven mad by her sister and killed her and her lover out of jealousy. Some claim that Belle went mad when some pervert killed Jack and Jill, her being the only witness and thinking she killed them, that a girl that small and weak could never do that much damage. At the end of the day, Belle was found guilty and sentenced to burn at the stake. Belle stood on the pile of twigs and branches. The high priest held the torch, said a quick sermon. Belle wasn't listening. She just couldn't wait to die. The high priest dropped the torch and set the pile ablaze. Belle's dress caught fire and the fabric melting to her skin. It was excruciating pain, and some villagers turned away to block out her screams. Eventually, Belle's nerve endings fried. She couldn't even feel the pain anymore. Then, she died. Then, she awoke. The glass tube opened, and the face mask came off. She fell to the floor and gasped for breath. 2 orderlies rushed into the room, nightsticks ready. Attempt 647 has been a failure, albeit with partial success. He was finally admitted some guilt, said one of the orderlies. Belle's head spun, and she vomited out of fear and confusion. Belle, I'm sure you like an explanation. However, I've given you the same story so many times. I don't know. You will never will be fully rehabilitated. Belle just stared at him, the memories flooding back. Belle grew up ugly, and in the shadow of her sister. Belle's resentment and hatred for Jill growing stronger each year. Belle, habitually escaping reality with alcohol. Belle, murdering her own sister. I preferred it when we would just kill criminals. It was more humane than this hippie bullshit. Come on, plug her back in. The 2 men lifted the husk of a woman back into the pod, ran the simulation over again. Belle didn't say a word. She knew this is where she belonged. Her memories started to disappear. She tried to scream, but no sound came out. She awoke from a nightmare.